Welcome back to the Ground Up Show. I'm your host, Matt Diavella, and today I'm having a conversation with Puno. Puno is a serial founder of businesses, websites, vlogs, and many other creative ventures. On this episode, we talk about why you should be bringing your personality into everything you create, why you shouldn't settle for anything less than a complete love for the projects you work on, as well as why you need to be okay with failing. I think you guys are really going to enjoy the energy of this conversation. But first, if you've gotten some value out of this podcast, you might be aware that I have a Patreon account. By becoming a Patreon member, you help to support this ad-free podcast, but you also get some pretty great video content in return. Videos on lifestyle design, business, filmmaking, creativity, and lots more. I actually just uploaded a video breaking down how I was able to grow my audience on YouTube and also giving tips that might help you. If you want to check it out, you can get it at patreon.com/Matt Diavella. And of course, if you do not have the money to contribute right now, do not feel pressure to do so. I appreciate you guys listening, and to me, that is enough. Okay, let's get into this week's episode with Puno. Fanny packs are coming back.
They are back.
They're back?
It's not even coming.
I don't know. I don't have any friends with fanny packs, but maybe my friends aren't cool enough.
You know, it's this. It's a shoulder pack now. It's not a fanny pack. Yeah.
I don't think that really counts. If you're throwing it around the shoulder, it's a bag, and you don't have the courage to put it around your waist.
Or you just are a minimalist.
Yeah.
You don't need to carry all that shit with you.
That's true. Yeah, right? A minimalist would never have a fanny pack. Neither would his friends. But anyway, you are the maker of many businesses, websites, vlogs, pants. You make a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Who is Puno? Like, who are you? What do you create? What drives you?
Okay, so let's start from the top. I have a website called ilovecreatives.com, and that is like it's like a Craigslist for creative people. That's how it started, where, you know, different creatives would put ads on there for jobs, or they needed help, or just, you know, trade spaces, events. And then I've just kind of started adding all of these things to it. Just because, like you said, I just do all sorts of random stuff. And then I also have a website called peoplemap.co, which is an Instagram marketing tool that I built with my husband, and he's a full stack programmer. And we built that when we were both growing Made with Map, which is this travel app that I quit my job for, and we both built it together, and we needed to grow it, and we went to Instagram. And as I was doing that, it was just like really cumbersome to do the kind of aggressive community growth that I wanted to do just on my phone. And so I was like, hey, can you tap into the Instagram API? And he was like, yeah. And so that's where it started. And then we decided, we were like, the Made with Map isn't really got like business bones to it, or at least the way that we want it to have a business. And so we pivoted to People Map, and so now that's our thing. And then I've just got like random other shit that I do all the time, just because I feel like I need to always have something fun to do that kind of balances the business side of things. So I just I'll do a cat calendar, or I made the pants with my friend, or I'll do a vlog just because I want to see what it's like with YouTube. And I don't know, I'm just like that.
I want to talk more about People Map in a second, because I think it's just a really cool idea. And I even see myself like going through and watching your video and some of the walkthrough demonstrations you've done. I'm like, I could use this in a lot of ways. I also want to talk about the cat calendar. But first, I feel like everything that you create, it just has a touch to it that's very unique. That it's effortlessly unique. It's effortlessly creative. Is that something that you intentionally think about? Like, are you thinking about how might people perceive this, or do you create without a filter, where you're like, I don't care what people think. I'm just going to make what I find to be interesting and what I find to be valuable?
Yeah, the latter. I mean, former. Wait.
Which one? I forget what I said.
It's the I don't care. I'll just put it up there. I was in advertising for when I first started, and I had to do everybody else's brand. And so it wasn't really until I started my own businesses that I was like, oh, I can really just do whatever the hell I want. And yeah, and I think that's the freedom, is like when you actually start building your own platforms and you start building your own things. I just naturally was like, the whole point of this is so I can just do the design the way I want to do the design, use the photos I want to use, and etc. So yeah, I think it's definitely no filter, just put it out there.
Yeah, maybe in terms of the creative energy and the tone of what you're creating, but I imagine there must be some thinking about an experience of a user in a platform. I guess that it's two different things there, but that's probably something you have to really think about. All right, how is somebody going to perceive this from a user experience type way?
So I actually was a UX director for a little bit. I was in art, I was in advertising, and then I was an art director. UX design didn't even exist. And then my husband was actually a UX designer, and I had just gotten laid off at DDB as an advertising art director. And his boss was like, I think you'd be a really good UX designer. And I was like, what is that? How do I do that? He just told me a couple of things that I needed to do just to show my thinking. And I was like, oh, it's about like, how do you think about the process? How do you think about, the experience that you can create digitally? What pixels need to be created in order for that to happen? And ever since then, I just kind of really loved the idea of like, how can I make a party, or how can I show everything that I want in just a few pixels? And sometimes that means, like you said, the fonts or like the photography. It's just what's the vibe that they get so that they're excited to click more and like to really explore what you've created online. So yeah, I really do think about the user experience a lot. And I think my approach too is to try to be the person that you are creating for. So when I worked at Call of Duty, I was a UX director there. I didn't play Call of Duty at all. The most I played was Guitar Hero and then the Wii. And so I logged 140 hours so I can get a 1.0 KD in Call of Duty. But then I understood what it felt like to be a Call of Duty player, and it was so much easier to design for that. So that's always like the approach is, all right, if I don't understand what I'm creating, then how can I be that person? And I think that's why like I do so many different things, so I can really like be that mindset and have that like correct perspective, if you will.
There's also a lot of research that goes into people who do user experience, right? So you have to go out and talk with people who are using your product and see how they actually use it on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. Is that something that you do now in terms of talking with people who use People Map or any other product you're creating?
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually also not the kind of person that likes best practices. I hate it. And so I don't do like user personas, or I don't have like a very strategic thing. All I do is just, like you said, I do walkthroughs, I get on calls, I just talk to people and just ask them, hey, I have this idea, like, is this what you're thinking? And then, from there we just kind of pick which feature we work on. Also, my husband and I are the only ones that are building People Map. So the amount of features that you can actually do in a year is really small. And so you kind of have to be pretty focused on, this is my hypothesis of what you guys would like. Let me just see if I can gather information about it, and then just execute on it as soon as possible. And that will tell you a lot more than any kind of research will, really, at the end of the day.
And then just like you're getting feedback, and then V2, you can iterate on it and make it even better.
Yeah, we don't even think about V2. It's really just like, just put it out there, and then
it's just a constantly changing thing.
Oh yeah, and that's like the whole reason why I wanted to start our own business, because when I was at a bigger company, there was all these, you got to have wireframes, and then you got to build that, and then you have to have a meeting, and it has to get approved. And with Daniel, since he's also a UX designer, we literally just talk things through. Sometimes I'll sketch something out. Most of the time I won't. And then he just puts the workflow up, and then we maybe do design tweaks later. But it's really fast. It's just brr, brr, brr.
That's great.
And we just keep making as many features as we think would hit the mark.
Yeah, I think something that you touched on earlier was like about creating efficiency, and there's almost a touch of minimalism there in terms of design, and I like to bring minimalism into every conversation I can, but it's like it is about the stripping away of the things that are going to be distracting or not helpful. So if you're designing a landing page for a website, you need to be really thoughtful about the things that you add. The one thing I loved about my conversation with David Cherry, who introed us, is that he says on his website they don't have an about page, and they haven't had it since the beginning.
I don't either.
And it adds almost like an element of like curiosity, like who is this person? What are they all about? Your website is like crazy. It's amazing. It's beautifully designed. It's just incredibly creative. It's got so much personality to it, but it is not, like you said, in any way a template or something that you could find on somebody else's stock site. And I think that's what we need today, because everybody's just copying each other. It's all just slightly different versions of itself.
Yeah, and I think that also has to do. I mean, are you talking about the People Map website?
Well, I was talking about. I didn't know about yours, but I think it was your personal website,
My
the one
personal
where it's
one.
just like first vlog or whatever, and it seems like it may be a little old, but
Yeah, it was a little old, but that I guess like when I started designing, just doing my own stuff, I think that it took me a while to really understand what I wanted to be about, I guess, and like how I wanted the website to look. So, when you're asking about like how do you design, is there a lot of thought to it? I think it's just a ton of iterations. What you're seeing is like the 30th iteration of like just different executions that I was just playing around with. And it's not really like I've never done like a whole thing where I really planned out the branding for something and I just kind of put it out there and then just change it because it's on Squarespace. So it's really easy.
Squarespace, it's amazing. I mean, it's amazing the tools that we have available now as creators to be able to make things. I mean, I think that the skill sets that you and your husband have are totally unique, and you can't make something like that on Squarespace in terms of pulling into APIs and doing a lot of the tech stuff that are required. But for most people, if you're a filmmaker, you're a photographer, if you want to build a website, even if you want to do a digital product, you can very easily.
I mean, I built I Love Creatives on Squarespace. So that was and I Love Creatives I built on Squarespace because Daniel, he doesn't have time to do every single digital project I want to do. And so he was like, well, I can't really work on this. And I was like, that's okay. I'll figure it out. And so I figured out how to hack basically the blog on Squarespace to be ads. And so that's how I created the ad platform on I Love Creatives. And ever since then, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I don't have to be a full stack programmer in order to build a community or create digital products like you're saying. I could just do all of this with Squarespace. I don't even have to spend time learning JavaScript in order to like get where I want to go. It's all just been on that damn platform. It's so good.
Yeah. Is there something that guides you in terms of growing an audience, like we were talking about earlier, where a lot of people can get really obsessed and focused on just grow versus something that I've seen you mention online is building organic community. Like, how do you do that versus the atypical model of just trying to grow for scale?
So the first Made with Map, when we first grew that, I did a very aggressive community growth through Instagram where I was reaching out to travel photographers, like 60 of them a day. Like that's how aggressive I was getting. With I Love Creatives, because it was my side project, I needed to make money in order for me to even like pay attention to it. So that was a totally different model. I just put the products that I thought people would pay for and just was like, here it is. That's it. And I never started an Instagram account. We're just doing that now. But I haven't done the actual community growth in terms of me going out there and outreaching. I want to, but I didn't have time. So it did build on its own word of mouth by creating great content and by providing things that people want to use. So it was a little different model in that sense. But what it taught me was put a dollar amount on anything that you build so that you can keep building it. Even if it's little, it'll like force you to really make money so that.
What does that mean? Like in terms of an idea of what you would want to earn from it?
Yeah. Like I had ads on there and I was like, I don't have time to actually put the ads up, so I have to hire somebody. So I basically timed myself and was like, how long does this take me to build? I knew it took me a certain amount of hours, so I was like, okay, if I paid somebody $20 an hour, how much do these ads need to be in order to pay for that person? And then that was the price. Because I was like, otherwise I'm not gonna be able to do it.
Right.
And then when I put the price up there, of course, the first, 3 to 6 months, it wasn't completely full, but at least there was money coming in, so I could see like there's some legs here. I can pay for something right now, and I can see that eventually it'll pay for itself.
Sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes you have to commit and say, okay, it's going to be a year, maybe 2 years.
Yeah.
Is there a certain time period that you'll commit to something before maybe temporarily throwing in the towel? Like one of my favorite books is The Dip by Seth Godin, where he talks about not just how to stick through with something, which is important, and there's this culture of quitters never win mentality.
Yeah.
But also sometimes quitting is important, and sometimes quitting is essential because maybe the market's not ready for it, maybe it's too soon, maybe it never would work. Mm-hmm. So how do you know how long to commit to something before realizing, I don't know if this is working out, I don't know if I love this as much as I once thought I did?
Well, if I don't love it, that's easy. That's like probably ever since I quit Activision, I was just like, anything that makes me unhappy a little bit, I either have to figure out how can I change it to make myself happy about this, or just cut it out. So that's like really easy. But the part where I am a minimalist is I'm very lazy, but I'm efficiently lazy.
Right.
So like I said, like with the whole being able to have a business model that actually paid for itself, then now I don't have to it's not a burden for me to build that newsletter every week because it's paying for itself. So that's why I don't have to think, is this really worth it? Because it's paying for itself. I'm not spending it really much time on it. And it's kind of its own ecosystem that's growing on its own. It's not growing incredibly fast, but there's just so many little opportunities that I've gotten because of it, so that I've never really needed to turn it off. So for I Love Creatives, I definitely feel like that is something, because it paid for itself, I never needed to quit it. For other projects, I never really look at it long term most of the time. Like the pants thing, I wasn't like, all right, I'm going to be a fashion designer and I'm going to do this. It was more like, hey, I want to do this thing. Let's just see, what it's like to create pants. Or like the cat calendar. I wasn't going to be like, okay, and now I'm going to get into the cat calendar business and I'm going to do this. But I don't know. It just was like a fun project to do. And it actually has led me to potentially creating another cat calendar or an animal calendar. But I think that's the other thing too, is with when you create some things, you don't have to feel this pressure of it's got to be the rest of your life or this is what's going to define you, especially if you're like me and you just consistently just keep doing lots of different things. Nobody's going to be able to put their finger on exactly what you are all about. They're just like, you just seem like this creative person that just does a lot of things. And at the end of the day, yeah, that's correct. That's what I am. That's what I do.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the kind of person that would make a cat calendar or pants, what was the fabric? It was it
was like velvet
pants. The kind of person that does that doesn't seem to be the kind of person that would often be overwhelmed with their work. So am I correct in assuming that, and I could be totally wrong, but that you generally don't get overwhelmed with your work and you kind of don't bite off more than you can chew? Because I feel like those kind of projects where they're very fun and creative, and also you're not trying to get rich making a cat calendar. You're doing it because you love it and because it's fun. Mm-hmm. Do you find yourself overwhelmed much at all? Well,
so all of those projects, I mean, if I really think about the amount of time it takes to create them, 5 days? It's not really that much of a time commitment, and I'm always collaborating. And it's the best way for me to learn about something new really, really quickly but also to just get it done faster because I'm collaborating with someone who is, they know what they're doing in a sense. Like the cat calendar, I didn't design it. I didn't print it. I actually worked with Goods Gang, and they do invitations, wedding invitations, and also some,
Hint, hint, hint.
But they do lots of like really awesome designs. And I was like, your aesthetic is exactly what I would want for this cat calendar. I just asked her about it, and then it was done after like a week or two. So yeah, I think it's just like super quick collaborations that don't make it super overwhelming for me. But I will get overwhelmed with like when people ask me for things, or they'll ask me to come to events, or they'll ask me to meet them up.
To do a goddamn podcast. It's like, come on.
I love podcasts.
But I know exactly what you're saying, and I get a lot of emails from people too who they want your time, and a lot of people are asking for value from you.
Yeah.
And it's very hard, especially when you're very busy with projects that you're passionate about. So how do you say no to those, and which ones do you say yes to?
Well, so most of the time, when I first started, when I quit Activision, I didn't have any friends in LA, which was weird because, I've already been here for 8 years. And then I was just like, I need to just meet a ton of friends. So at that time in my life, that was a priority. And I probably met a new person once a week for like 2 years. And that was great. But now I can't do that. And so I just am not as aggressive about like, having coffee meetings, or if I can, I'll just get on a phone call real quickly, or I'll just say, hey, can we just talk about this over email? Like that might be easier for me to like talk to you. And then, in terms of like when people ask me for information or like advice, I always try to think, okay, are there enough people that are asking me about this thing that I can create a course, or I can create some kind of content that would just, I could just throw them that way. And so that's why I started that Instagram marketing course, because I was just like, people are asking me so much, like, how do I, not just how to use People Map, but like, what is Instagram marketing strategies in general? So I just threw everything that I knew on that freaking course, and then just, tell them, hey, this is the fastest way that you'll get everything that's on my mind about this topic. Yeah. So
I've heard a lot of people talk about the pre-selling of courses, of selling a course before you make it.
Yeah.
Is that something that you do believe in? What do you think about it?
So I kind of did that. I did that with this one person, and I don't know. I pretty much, I feel like the only reason why I would build a course is because I know that there's enough people that have wanted to learn about this. With General Assembly, actually, I used to teach at General Assembly. That was a really good test bed to do those kinds of things, and just like put up a course. It forced me to do slides the night before, and then I just like made something and tested it that way. But I never really did like a pre-launch course before. I feel like they definitely work. That's just not my style. Like with the Squarespace course that I just did, I really wanted it to be totally different. And I was like, the other reason why was because I don't know, I don't really like how some of the online courses are. They're a little cheesy for me.
I have the same feeling about a lot of the self-help online.
Yeah.
A lot of, like, whether it's a podcast or a YouTube video, so much corny shit out there. And it's like, guys, can you like lighten up, add some personality to it? And that goes for courses.
Yeah.
It's like you're making something that could be 30 hours worth of content somebody needs to digest.
Right.
It's not just education.
Right.
Like, you have to be entertaining and interesting and funny and insightful. There's a lot more that you can bring besides just info.
And yeah, exactly. And I didn't want to teach because of that reason. I didn't want to teach because every single course that was like how to build an online course was not how I would ever do it for myself. And so I had to really, and I actually didn't even want to do the course because of that. So I had to really think about, how can I design this in a way that would really make me want to build it? And that's when you just kind of take a step back And I just went balls to the walls on it. I like hired a game programmer, and I hired a 3D artist, and I made this Monument Valley-esque world where you can go and there's gamification and there's levels in it. And then I hired a video editor so that she can make it hilarious. We even made like a song. So whenever you get really frustrated, you can it's called Calm Down. And we made water breaks, and I just really wanted to make it feel different and feel like me. And so yeah, it took 6 months for me to build that. But you're right, like I don't know how I could have pre-vetted that if I didn't know exactly what I was building, because honestly, it wasn't until the past maybe month or two that I really was like, oh yeah, this is it. I had to go through the process of building something completely new, and there's no template for it, in order to, satisfy my creative self, but also like have something that I can sell too.
Yeah, and I think maybe that comes with experience. The longer that you've been doing something like this, the more that you have an intuition for what people might respond to, and you've obviously built an audience so you know what they might be interested in hearing about from you. So I think that plays a part in it, because just if you were just starting out, I think maybe it helps, say if you're a filmmaker, to make a bunch of really short videos.
Oh yeah.
Get feedback, put it out, get feedback, put it out. And eventually you can get to the point where you make a feature documentary, you do something that's a little bit more ambitious.
Right.
That said, I know some people that have done the opposite, where they're like, I've never made a video before, and now I'm going to make a feature documentary, and they got it on Netflix, and
you're like,
damn, I guess I'm wrong. So I say that because there's other templates out there. There's other things that could work for other people. But for the most part, I think you just really have to focus on the craft and like just get better. And then down the road, when you're good enough, you can maybe take a little bit more time with something. Because I think it holds you back if you're saying, with this specific course, here, let's do pre-sales, and then that makes you feel pressured to finish it in a month or two, where you never could have with that specific project.
And for how my vision for it was a lot bigger than just a couple of months. I knew that. So I knew that I needed to spend a lot of time on like building what that is. And I think the big difference between me now and me maybe a couple of years ago is I know I love the process. I know I love the hurt, and I love the grind, the confusion, the worry, all of that shit that comes with building your own idea and like executing it. I thrive on that. And I want to just do it my way. I'm a little control freak in that sense. So it is nice to hunker down and just really build something for a while, and then put it out there. That being said, I also don't ever do that too with like all these side projects like Cat Calendar and stuff like that. I was just like, go, just like, let's just do whatever. Because it's just like a creative thing it's just some idea I got when I was smoking pot, and now I want to see what it actually is going to look like.
It's amazing. I love that. I got to start executing on more of those ideas.
Yeah.
Well, it's fun. Oh man, I'm about to mention it. I always do this. But I was talking about David Sherry, and one of the things was just coming up with weird ideas. Like, why not? Just crazy ideas.
I have this like on my phone, I have a tag called Hideas. And I don't know if you get high, but that's like my window into my creative self. It's just a really good gateway to it. I use that word for
nice.
But like so Daniel, my husband, he doesn't smoke, and so I just had to like learn, how can I just do this on my own? So maybe like twice a week, maybe once a week, I'll get a little high, get into my bed, and then I just let it ride, and I'm just like, let's go crazy. And these ideas are just like coming and going crazy. The next morning, sober Puno has to be like, all right, what's this girl talking about here?
Like, are you video? Or are you going to write down these things?
I wrote everything.
You write everything down?
I write everything down.
I think that you actually really do come up with a lot of great ideas when you're high.
I do.
Sometimes they feel better in the moment. And like, you're right. It's the sober version of Puno needs to go through and be like, all right, this one is actually terrible.
Yeah.
But this one might work. This is actually really funny.
Yeah. I was like,
I think it's because we naturally overthink. I think like maybe it's something about growing up as kids, like we're just told to kind of play the safe route and not touch the stove. But then as you get older, I don't think you should touch the stove, but you should be a little bit more courageous in coming up with ambitious and crazy ideas that are not safe.
Exactly. And so I actually, when I was in Vegas and that Girl Boss retreat, they had a tarot reader there, and I've never done my tarot cards ever. I was just like, ooh, kind of scared about it. And the first thing she's like, what's your sign? And I was like, shouldn't you know this? But
yeah.
But she's like, what's your sign? And I was like, I'm a Gemini. And she said, oh, Geminis overthink. They think too much. So she's like, you just need to like trust the process. And I was like, oh girl, you're speaking to me right now. Yeah. And it's true. I think when I do get high, I let myself really dive in places that I'm like, whoa, that is you. That's who you are. Like, let that out. So then the sober Puno needs to be like, okay, that is you, but nobody knows what the hell you're talking about. So how can I like turn this into a business idea, a project, content that is just easily or more approachable or digestible, and then like these two minds start working together in that sense. So
yeah, it's how do you tell the story around it? So you're going from your head to somebody else, and especially if it's something that's crazy or a little bit weird. How do you get people to care about what you find to be interesting?
I guess the analogy is my high self is like that crazy CEO that like comes in, he's like, I got a great idea. How about this? Puno. Execute it.
That's so good.
And then I'm all like, man, this guy, he thinks he has such great ideas.
Oh my God, that's so funny. But then a couple of them are pretty good. You're like, gotta give him credit. It's pretty damn
That's
good
why I'm
idea.
still here.
Yeah.
That's why I still clock in.
That's funny. So I'll tell you my crazy idea that I have, and I was brainstorming with David about. It's been a running theme of the show. I'm trying to get The Rock on my podcast, Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Or you're trying to figure out how to get The Rock on here? Oh my God.
Oh my God. I like how it's in the corner. It's just like tucked in there.
The perfect frame for it too.
I got our best frame for it. We don't have any other family photos hanging on the wall. He's the only one.
He is. Okay, that's enough right there.
And since I mentioned The Rock on the podcast, I've got to play the Get The Rock on Matt's podcast jingle. And this is it. This is a jingle created by Sam Tier.
Hey, The Rock, don't be impolite, except Matt's invited to the Ground Up Show.
I did a competition. So there was like 30 people created jingles for the Get The Rock on Matt's podcast jingle competition, and Sam Tier was voted the winner.
I think he would come on.
I don't know. Do you have any crazy ambitious ideas like that you've thought of over time that you have or haven't decided to pursue?
Yeah. So ever since the beginning of the year, I was on Girl Boss and I did the startup desk where I just talked about like how to use Google and how to like do Photoshop, and I think it wasn't Photoshop, it was like something else. But I was like, wow, I like teaching. I just have this hang up about teachers. And so as I'd worked through the Squarespace course, I was like, okay, I can build this in my way. And then I was like, what does that really mean, like big picture? One big thing that I've been playing around with is how can I create like really valuable online education that can be 360? Like a lot of developer online education does this right now where, you know, they don't make you pay tuition up front, and then once you get a job, then you can get tuition. But there's a lot of other jobs that are out there besides tech, and that could be in tech too, like marketing or even like freelance designers and all those kinds of things. So I'm trying to figure out like how can I build, I don't want to say university, but like how can I build some kind of amazing online education platform that's very me, like very fun, very like actionable, and like get someone to actually be able to get a job and pay back this immediately. That's kind of like something big that I've wanted to do. Another big thing that I've been playing around with is I've always wanted to create a show, and I don't know what that show really is, but the idea is somehow bringing education and entertainment together. So I have no idea what that is. I started a YouTube series. We're on episode 2, but it's called 1-800-HEY-PUNO, where people call in and they ask me like advice, and then I just like, okay,
That's
let me
amazing.
show you how to do that. So I don't know exactly how big it's gonna be, and I need to, for me personally, I need to go through the process in order to really understand and visualize what that is. I do feel like that's kind of like one of my cons, or like not a con, but that's one of my weaknesses, is I don't really think big and long term. I mean, as you can see, like, so I am trying to exercise that skill and try to figure out like, what does that mean? And some of that actually involves me talking to people who think big already and who have like been at big companies. And one of those people was at that Girl Boss retreat. Her name's Allison. And she's the president of Girl Boss. And she also was like at Refinery 29 and Elle, and she just thinks big. And so I'm just like, okay, I need to like just talk to her and really like, ask the questions that I'm not asking, because I just don't naturally do that.
Yeah, people give a lot of shit to the life coaches and stuff. And while I haven't hired any, I don't think that there's anything wrong with it. 'Cause I think there's so many people out there that get you to think things in a different way, kind of like that, where a lot of times we put these self-limiting beliefs and doubts on ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I could never do that. But then it's like, if you have someone in there that's just giving you a healthy nudge in the right direction to be like, no, I think that's actually what you should do. If that's really what you're passionate about, and like, here's maybe how you could go about doing it.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like I'm not a big mentor person either, because I think at the time I never had something where I needed a mentor, because I could find everything online. Mm-hmm. Like I was like, oh yeah, any question I had, it's like it was available there. I can learn it that way. Or if there was a person that I thought would be my mentor, I would just research the crap out of him and like, oh, I got kind of like what I needed from that. So I've never needed that. But now, in terms of a mentor, it's more of this feedback thing that I'm like craving. It's just, I really want someone who can see my potential and then be able to help me understand how can you make that realized. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's a life coach, maybe it's a mentor, maybe it's something else, but either way, I'm just putting that out there now.
Yeah, it's out there. They know where to find you.
Shoot.
Well, I think I have the similar experience, but even in doing this podcast and connecting with other creatives, I find these conversations to be enlightening and self-motivating for myself, which is kind of like a cheat. And I would really do this podcast if nobody listened, because it's the best excuse in the world to just connect with other creatives.
Totally.
And to just brainstorm. And I just have to remind myself, stop asking questions that just I want to know answers to, because sometimes it may be too specific.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it's helpful,
Yeah.
because a lot of times it's the conversations you have either before or after the podcast that can be the most interesting.
Yeah.
Because you're like, well, no, really, how did you do that thing?
Yeah,
Like, how did you shoot that video?
Yeah.
And a lot of times, I don't know, we try to be a little bit too clean cut on a podcast and be like,
Yeah.
let's give practical advice for
Well, that's
everyday
what
life.
I wanted to do, the plug.
The plug, yeah.
The podcast vlog, because the thing I love about the vlog is that it's flexible and you can be messy, and people don't really need that linear storyline, and you can just be super random, which is what I am. And so I was like, ooh, how can I do that with just audio? I don't know yet. I mean, that was just like the
so
high
that's
idea.
what it was. I didn't really I got it when you said it, but it could have went either way. I thought
Yeah.
maybe like it meant you were just going to be filming your podcast in a more gritty kind of way, but you're talking about you just capturing maybe your day or where you are, but in that
Audio.
format. My friends did something kind of similar, but not really that.
Yeah.
Colin and Samir, they've got a great YouTube channel, but they did, and they've got a podcast as well, but they did one episode where it was just them in the coffee shop and walking around Venice with wireless mics clipped to themselves and answering audience questions.
Right.
So you have that kind of feel, and you have people like almost like hit them in traffic, and
Yeah.
you have these moments that are kind of verite and that are in the moment, but at the same time, I don't think it's been done in that kind of way.
Right. And so here's what I'm juggling, which is, what is the reason why I'm wanting to do this? And does the medium matter? Like, how bad does the medium matter? Because, like, for me, it's like the execution part is kind of the same in a sense. Like, the person that I would have edit it for me, because I don't edit my own stuff, she can do both. So it doesn't really matter. But it's more like, what's the best way that I can communicate the point of whatever I'm trying to do? And so for the vlog, when I first started it, the whole point of the vlog was just, I wanted to see what it's like to be a YouTube vlogger. I had no agenda besides that. And I did it for like 60 days straight. And that was great. I needed to stop it though, because I was like, like, I'm not getting anything out of this right now. Just like recording little crap for my day and like saying hi to certain people. So I needed to like figure out, okay, what's another way I can do this so that it'll keep my attention? And I'm still trying to figure that out. But I think once I figure out like, okay, the whole point of this is, let's say, to really dive deep into my process of how I create, even just this, like this whole thought process of doing it. What's the best medium for it, or what's the fastest medium for it? So,
well, that's interesting. It's like, because you do have the option of just making that a vlog. Like, you could do the video version.
Yeah.
I guess what would be the benefits for you of each? Because I know that you see the value in video and like where it is now. Like YouTube it's crazy that YouTube's been around for so long, and yet now it's the quickest growing platform. It's kind of insane.
Yeah.
And it's just getting bigger every day. Podcasting as well is growing, but I think we mentioned this before the podcast, the fact that podcasting isn't really discoverable in the same way that YouTube is. So I wonder, maybe the fact that it's this unique style alone could, bring people to you, and that might be the thing that draws you to there.
Right. You are in my head. Yeah, that's exactly it. Like, I'm like, okay, is this a thing? Just like how minimalism, right? Like, when before you approached it, did you know that it was like minimalism was going to be your thing? That's the place. That's the way people are going to gravitate to you. That you're creating this community of minimalists, or were you just like, nah, this is me. This is just how I'm doing it. This is just my process of like figuring out minimalism. It
was a little bit of both. Like, when I personally found out about minimalism, it was right after I moved back home with my parents in their basement, $100,000 in debt.
Right.
And then I came across this guy, Tom Shadyac, who directed the documentary I Am, as well as Bruce Almighty and all these amazing comedies from the 90s with Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
And it was his story about getting rid of everything he had, when he got everything he thought he was supposed to want. And I was like, wow, you can do that? Oh, wow. And then it just started to get me. That was kind of like the moment that started to get me to think about a different alternative lifestyle.
Right.
And then I started to find other people who called themselves minimalists.
Yeah.
That had more of a template. And Josh and Ryan from the Minimalists were very helpful because they had written so much about it.
Yeah.
And then it was, for me, in terms of at least making the documentary, was seeing the movement, seeing it happening, but not thinking that it could be successful necessarily, but just knowing that I really want to make a documentary, and it's just a dream that I've always had. And what better topic to do it on than something that changed my life and I know is helping other people.
Right. So yeah, it's going to be a balance. It's always like, this is the medium I want to explore because it's interesting to you, which is why the plug is so interesting to me, because I'm like, wow, how do you do that? Like, what would that sound like? What do I need to do in order to make that entertaining enough for somebody to listen to? And what are the benefits and cons to it? I think that's why I just keep like not giving up on that idea and not just going to the easy route of a vlog, because I've already done that. I know what that means for me.
True. Yeah, and I mean, you're right in that there's a definite pro that the production of it is so much easier, and it's also much more natural. You're holding a camera out, vlogging, versus just clipping a mic on yourself.
Yeah.
And then you just record it, and then you don't have to film yourself.
I know.
It sounds amazing.
Yeah.
But you're right in that that's where creativity happens. because you can't just, I don't think that it's just going to happen. A great story is not just going to happen. A lot of people think that even with vlogging, that all it takes is you just turning the camera on yourself. You got to think this shit through. And that's the same thing if you're going to do a podcast like that, where it's like, all right, I'm going to do an episode. Maybe it's 15, 20 minutes. What should it be about?
Right. Exactly. But with my vlog, when I first did it, I didn't think about anything.
Yeah. I feel like you're a rare exception though too, because you just have such a bright personality that I feel like I would look like an idiot if I tried that. But I don't know.
I just do random shit. I'm just like blah 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 blah, and people
it's
are
hilarious.
like, "That's true."
Yeah,
that is something. But I don't know if I could just blah blah on like a podcast and people would be like,
or to do it consistently for a long, long time.
Well, that's the thing is I'm never really about like. The way I would do it is I would say, okay, I'm going to try this for 30 days or something.
I like even people do seasons.
Or
I'm going to
do
10 episodes.
Yeah.
It's going to be the first season.
I actually did a creative mornings talk about commitment, which was so funny because in a sense I'm not committed, but my thesis was I'm committed to multiple things. And so in order to do that, you just kind of have to like commit for a few moments on something, which is not really commitment, but it is in a sense. But yeah, so like I feel like I think the difference between podcast and a vlog is going to be about how can I show people more of what's going on in my head in terms of like being being a creative entrepreneur or whatever this label is that is on me. And that's kind of the thing I want to get across is this is how I think through things. This is all the mistakes that I make. And I feel like podcasting or just audio is such a really great way to get in my head. Whereas when I do have the camera up, I am thinking about lots of different things. Like, do I look good? Blah, blah, blah.
Is it framed? And
Is it framed? Like, what else is going on around here? You have to hold it up too. So that is like kind of the nice thing about that. Yeah.
You said that you've gotten to the point where you're okay, not only okay with it, but you enjoy the grind and working and failure and everything that most people are afraid of when they're starting something. How did you get to that point? Was it there from the beginning once you left that big agency?
I think I've always had it, but it was at Activision. That was where I like made a definitive like statement to myself because so we were working on Call of Duty Elite, which is like this huge platform that we were trying to create for 20 million Call of Duty players. It kind of failed in a sense, like the first year. And what had happened was they just fired people. And I was like, damn it. Like we built such a great team. We only had a year to execute on this and it failed because of all these other things, right? And I was like, that's not fair. Like, why can't we work on this longer? Why do you have to fire someone who was helping so much with making the product where it is right now and has the experience and all of the mistakes that we've made, you know, along the way? Like, why do they have to go away? And that's when I was like, I love making mistakes and I love being able to deal with the consequences of my mistakes because that's the best way I'm going to create a product. That's the best way I'm going to create. And so that's why I needed to leave because I was like, you guys just punish people for taking risks or trying something new or whatever. Not you guys, just like one or two people. But yeah, that was like the definitive moment for me that I was like, I do love the process. I do love taking risks and making mistakes.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's so funny. It's because like you're getting punished for failing, but I think that you have to build a culture where failing is okay because that's the only way that you're ever going to get to success.
Yeah,
and it's the number one thing that's going to hold people back from even starting.
Yeah, and it's like the thing that they were asking for too was crazy. They were like, "We want the Netflix of Call of Duty," and I was like, "What does that mean?" And so we had to like backtrack and like figure out what that means, but also figure out what this huge, thriving, very like aggressive community wanted to. And a year is not enough time to figure that out. You need way longer. You need so much more just time to iterate on it. And And so now, like with I Love Creatives and with People Map, like I've just been able to do that. I've just been able to like, oh, well, that didn't really work out, and it's not like, it's not a failure anymore. Like I don't even look at it as a failure. It was just an idea that just didn't work out.
Yeah, what's nice about it is that you're only letting yourself down.
Yeah.
And like I've had to play with that a little bit in my own head in terms of when I was a freelance filmmaker, I would never want to let a client down. And that meant backing up on 2 to 3 drives, making sure I would never lose the footage, making sure I delivered before I said I was going to deliver, and all those things. And I think while the pressure now isn't as intense because I'm working for myself, and if I lose footage, then I can only blame myself. Mm-hmm. I should still treat myself kind of like a client, where I started backing up my files for personal projects because I knew I wouldn't want to lose this.
Totally.
And the same thing goes for meeting deadlines and all this other stuff. I think if you start to treat yourself like a client, and maybe you don't have the same pressure, but you're gonna, I think, execute much better. Because otherwise, I think it's kind of hard to be self-motivated in the same way.
Oh, yeah. And so ever since I did quit, I was like, okay, I don't want to resent being an entrepreneur. I don't want to resent being a freelancer. So what do I need to do in order to get through the grind? Because it still sucks. I mean, I say like, I love it. But like, there's still days, especially on my monthly, where I'm like, like this sucks. Or when you're not making money, that's even worse. And so I did this thing like every morning. And now I feel like I've done it so much that I just constantly and do it without having to prompt myself. I just ask myself, I try to be like the best boss I would ever want. And I ask myself every morning, hey, Puno, how's it going? Are you feeling happy? Like, if you're not feeling happy, what is it that we can change about your routine? Like, are you feeling overworked? What can we do about your, like your hours? I just ask myself those questions, and then I can like get through little jumps. And I think that like management of yourself is so important when you're working on your own. And I don't think a lot of people allow themselves to coach themselves or like, like allow themselves to have conversations like that where it's like, hey, so it doesn't seem like you're very happy with this. Like, what can we do about this to make this a little bit better for you? People just automatically think, okay, no, this is just freelancing and entrepreneurship is a grind. You can only eat ramen and you have to like not get any sleep. But is that really the situation? If that was your employee and that's how they thought, would you want that from them? Like, so how can you ask yourself or your employee like, hey, I want you to stay in this. This is for the long term. So how can we make your lifestyle better in order for you to stay on this team? And that's just my approach now. And I feel like it's been helpful because it gives me the opportunity to just, be human and not just be this entrepreneur monster that's like, I'm beast mode. And I got my rock picture and like everything's cool.
Yeah. And like everything's falling apart. Yeah. That's like what people want to see. They want to see the realness. They want to see the fact that you're struggling. And when we just present this perfect versions of ourselves, I don't think it makes many people feel good, especially creators that are trying to make things happen and are struggling to do so.
Right.
And I love what you said just about almost like having these one-on-ones with yourself every morning, because discontent can creep up on you.
Oh,
it's the thing that, you get that job promotion or you land that client project and you get this rush of adrenaline and excitement, and then it just carries through for a long time. But eventually down the road, if you're not happy, if you are grinding yourself every single day, it's hard to see the fact that you're miserable, that you're neglecting family, that you're, not spending time relaxing or enjoying other passions.
Yeah.
So that needs to be consistent. It's just like, am I happy? Do I like doing this?
And if this is the lifestyle, I knew that this was a lifestyle change for me. And if that was the case and I was in it forever, I needed to make sure that I checked in, because like the future is just a bunch of nows. So I have to make sure that every now is going to lead up to the future that I want eventually. And that means checking in every day. Because you're right. Like if you don't, it's going to manifest in your work, and it's going to manifest in like your mood, and you're going to be drunk crying like at 11 p.m. and you didn't want to do that.
Yeah, I said not again, and now here I am.
Here I am. Look at me. Just another martini. Thanks.
Yeah.
Blue cheese.
It always helps. Blue cheese. Is that a drink? Is that a martini?
Blue cheese and olives.
Oh, I'm not fancy. My fiance is all into that. She's into the, I don't even know, like, what is it called? Not cheese boards are one thing.
You don't even know what cheese boards are called?
Dude,
You mean
I'm
like-
Olive Garden Italian. Like, we're not like
Oh!
legit Italian, and we don't, I don't know. Also, we didn't have cheese boards when I was growing up.
That's true. That's
a
true.
new thing.
That's true. You're like
Avocado
Lunchable?
toast? What is this? I don't know.
Charcuterie.
I'm trying to stick to my roots.
Is that what
but-
you're talking about?
Charcuterie. She calls it charcuterie. I thought
Charcuterie.
charcuterie. Which is what? It's
Meats.
yeah.
Yeah.
I remember she said that once. She said, "Oh, I wish this place had charcuterie," and I was like, "Who are you? Like what? Who talks like that? When did you get rich?"
Where is she?
Yeah. Where did she go? Where'd the dollar slice pizza person go?
I love that you love Olive Garden. I used to eat those never-ending pasta bowls. Oh, they're so good.
It's endless everything there. It's endless fun, endless depression. People map. So I have like a lot of hard time finding podcast guests. It's just tough. I mean, I rely mostly. Well, here's the thing. Like, I rely mostly on other guests to.
And you're
intro me
focused
to
so much
other
on
guests.
The Rock too.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like that's all I'm focused on. And if I'm not going to get The Rock on the podcast, then these other people don't matter. No offense, but it's The Rock. But it seems like that might be helpful in terms of trying to find guests that are potentially like-minded.
Yeah.
Because I usually use Instagram, period, as a way to just search for people.
Yeah.
But it's very difficult to use the actual search within Instagram to find it. So do you think that would actually be helpful?
Yeah. So, okay. The way that People Map works is exactly how you probably use Instagram, which is you go on someone's profile and you're like, ooh, who's this person all about? And then you go through their followers, you go through their likes. At this point, though, like people are following, over 500 more people, and it's hard to get through that. Mm-hmm. So you literally on People Map, you click on this analyze button. And what we do is we show you people that have recently commented or that person has tagged. And so it just filters that really quickly. And so you can see like, oh, okay, these are the people who are probably really good friends with that person, or if they've tagged them, it's something that they're interested in, and you can just go through that rabbit hole. So yeah, I mean, I would just start with like finding people that you're interested in and then clicking that analyze button and seeing what happens.
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said about being able to search like the follower count, like how many people are following somebody.
Yeah.
Because it's when you're first starting out, you're trying to get somebody on your podcast that has 500,000 followers that's really well known in a space. Mm-hmm. It's gonna be very hard. So it's nice to be able to limit that and be like, you know what, maybe I'm just looking for somebody that's got 5,000 to 15,000. Mm-hmm. And as much as I don't think that we should be judging people based upon the follower count,
it helps.
I think it's a helpful tool to knowing how long somebody has been in an industry. If people respect that person.
Yeah, and if that person has a thriving community, and what I mean by thriving is even if they get like 30 comments on their post, that's still a lot, and it shows that that person knows how to communicate to their people. And so that's what you want on the podcast. You want to have a good conversation with someone. And if they can do that with a couple of words and like a little image, then
you need some kind of filters in order to find the person.
Yeah.
And then you can do a little bit more research. And be like, would this person actually be good to sit down with?
Totally. One thing you could do, and so like a lot of brands use our site, but a lot of influencers use People Map, which I thought was really interesting because I didn't think that was our market when we first started, but they use it and they'll go to like a brand that they really want to work with. They'll analyze the brand, and then because you can search profiles too, and they'll search for the brand name in the search, and usually it comes up with people who've worked for the brand. So for example, like if you're wanting to talk to somebody at Under Armour, maybe you could find the CMO, or like you could also find it on LinkedIn, but it is kind of nice to like see who are the people who are socially connected to this account. And that could be an interesting way to bring somebody on Under Armour to your podcast, and then they could intro you.
Yeah. I think what could be good about that is potentially finding clients. So freelancers. Now we're just pitching your product, by the way, but I love it. But I mean, honestly, like just looking at it, I was like, this is a really helpful tool.
Right.
And I think that the people are on these platforms, so being able to make sense of it and decode what's happening and how to connect with the right people is truly helpful.
And that's actually where we fall down, because People Map, when you first log in, is just like a search bar. And we don't have a database that you can like search through. It's just, who are you going to start? What's the first person you're going to start with? Or what's the hashtag you're going to start with? So it sucks for us because we haven't figured out how to get people to think like you do. Because you're like, oh, I could search for this person. Or if I'm like finding clients, I could like look for these keywords. But not everybody thinks like you. And so I have to like figure out, okay, how can I get someone to understand that the tool isn't going to give you, what you want immediately. You have to like kind of dig a little bit in understanding who you're trying to reach. And then it's just going to be, you're going to get it.
That makes sense. It's like somebody who would log into Spotify and expect them to give you great music recommendations in every different genre. You have to do a little bit of that work first and put in, say, I really like listening to Odyssey. Okay, then you can find similar artists to him.
Yeah.
And then from there you can start to build it.
Exactly.
I get it. Like in that you're doing the work anyway. Like you're like, no matter what, you're going to have to do that research and put in the time to find clients or find podcast guests.
Yeah.
It's nice to have some additional tools and
that filters
platforms.
it. Because like Instagram has 1 million active users on a month. So to like filter through all of that, it takes a long time. And I found that it honestly, like it took me about an hour to just document, like if I found 60 people, it took me an hour to just document like who they were on a spreadsheet or whatever. And it was just so much easier for me to just add them to a list on People Map versus like doing that. So it's not going to find exactly who you want just by inputting it, but like you said, it's going to give you a little bit more efficiency when you're trying to find specific types of people.
I love it though, because it's just in terms of even how you came up with the idea, because it was a problem that you had and you were like, oh, maybe I just make it.
Maybe Daniel just makes it.
Right, yeah. I mean, you definitely, I'm sure, had a huge part in it.
Yeah, our relationship is interesting because he's the guy who can maintain an idea and build the idea. And I can sometimes build it if it's like I Love Creatives, I can help build it. But otherwise, I think I am the idea person and I'm the marketing person too. So we do work in that really well in that sense.
I know a lot of people that are idea killers. So it's you bring up an idea and then they tell you every reason why it's probably not going to work.
Yeah.
How do you approach that? Whether it's you guys working together as a partnership, coming up with ideas, when do you give the honest feedback and criticism that needs to be there? And when do you just say, hey, let's explore this?
Well, so that's actually still a sore point for us. Like, because, husband and wife team, I am very sensitive to how, like, Daniel's tone when he starts talking to me about ideas. And, like, so this is just something we're working on continuously is how can I approach you about an idea and how can we just talk about the idea? And a lot of it has been like pretty hard because he's a programmer. He's very analytical. He's not even thinking about my feelings. He's just trying to like figure out, what are you saying about this idea? Like, what does this idea mean? And what are all the, I wouldn't say like problems with it, but like what are all the things we have to solve in order for this to actually work and make sense? And I always was like very sensitive about it. Like, you're killing my idea. So now, one, I need to not make that assumption that that's what he's doing. I don't call him an idea killer anymore. I'm just like, Daniel's just, thinking about it. And then I also had to be like I had to tell him like, these were the little triggers that you do in your facial expressions, in your like the tone of your voice that triggers me to be defensive and like sad because my idea is, I feel like you hate my idea. And so we've started like, I'll be like, oh, that was it. That was the trigger.
Yeah. It's really helpful. I mean, that's communication.
Yeah.
And that's like, I think how any relationship is successful, whether it's business or intimate. It's
Right.
like, you have to be open when you're feeling like, I'm kind of like mad that you said that. Like, I'm not like really mad, but also like, it kind of bums me out that you did that.
Yeah, and I need to nip it in the butt now because I can't just process this on my own because this is involving you.
Mm-hmm.
I have to like talk this through with you, and sometimes it's painful because when you talk about things before you've thought things through, it's embarrassing because you haven't thought things through, and frustrating because you don't know how to explain it. And so I need to get over that because it's so much better to like just talk to that person about it right when it happens, as opposed to, well, last May when you said that was awful. Like, that's not helpful.
Yeah,
at all.
I had the same thing with Nat with the idea thing, and sometimes it still comes up where it is, I have this idea for how I want to go with this video, and then she just doesn't get it, or maybe it's probably my fault. I think the last time I'm thinking of it, it was me not explaining it properly. But regardless, it wasn't like overwhelming. Like, yeah, that's really great. You should really do that. It was like, I don't know. I don't get it. And it's like, and then I got mad. I was like, I don't need that right now. Right now, I need your support. So if you could just maybe not be a dick. But I think it's like the balance of, I do want her honest opinion.
Yeah.
I think her opinion is very valuable to me. She's very creative, and I think she brings a lot whenever I ask her for ideas and feedback.
Right.
And then, so I don't want her to be in a position where she's like, should I be honest?
Yeah.
Should I tell him that it's a bad idea?
Exactly. Because like, I don't want Daniel to be like, well, I don't want you to cry.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh.
Yeah. But I think that's just like, I think like what a lot that we talked about on this show is just like, it's kind of sticky. There's not just A, B, C, certain steps that you can take in a creative field or in relationships.
Yeah.
It's a little bit messy, but it's just about constantly working at it.
Yeah. And then just being really, really honest and self-deprecating.
I love that.
Because like, if you can't laugh about it and you can't just be like, yeah, I cried, and then I took a puff of my CBD pill and then and I'm like, okay, I'm fine. But like, if you can't laugh about it, then it's just, it's going to be so painful.
I think that's one of the keys to like happiness and well-being is as weird as it is and how little people talk about it, but self-deprecation. Just make fun of yourself. Then like you can't feel bad if somebody else shits on you or doesn't like your work.
Yeah,
or,
I already pre-shit on myself, guys.
It's like the Eminem. It's like when he disses himself in 8 Mile before the guy can even do it.
Yeah. I was like, ooh.
Yeah, he did it.
Eminem.
Yeah.
I didn't see that coming. Yeah.
Well, we did. We all saw it coming.
We all did.
Yeah, so to wrap up the podcast, there's 2 things here. So one thing and then the second thing. The first thing, do you have advice that you would give any creatives that were looking to set out to start something new that maybe haven't done this before, who are having a lot of doubts?
Doubts. Well, you just got to do it. There's like nothing else that you can do besides, okay, as an example, when I first started Made with Map, I like thought I needed to plan everything out before, and I need to worry because worrying means I care about the project. I don't worry that much anymore because it's such a waste of time. It's just so exhausting mentally. Even if I worry for 5 minutes, it takes like 2 days out of me. So ever since then, I was just like, I just need to execute just something small in order to like see what I'm thinking, or like, can I experiment on like what that idea could potentially be. So I would definitely just say, don't think that worrying is helping you, because it's not really. I think there's a difference between worrying and there's a difference between like thinking things out. When you're thinking things out, you're planning how can you execute this next to get to the next step. When you're worrying, you're just like, I don't know. Should I do this? I don't know. I mean, is that what they want? I don't know. But it's like, if you're thinking things through, then you're like, all right, who do I need to reach in order for me to answer this question about the question that I have in my head? Or what steps do I need to take in order to, bring it to the next level? That's one advice. The second thing is, you're bootstrapped. I'm bootstrapped. David's bootstrapped. I I feel like when people tell the world that they're going to do this idea, that they have to be full passion 100% of the time, and that's why they're doing this. But the reality is you have to pay for your food and your house and your like everything. And I read this book, maybe he could be your next podcast guest, from Professor Guillaume. And he wrote this book called You Are a Circle. And one of the things in there was like, for creatives, you need to always have 3 jobs, and you need to constantly juggle these 3 jobs at one time. And job number 1 is it's the thing that pays the bills, and it doesn't have to be passionate. Like, it just needs to pay the bills, and that's what it's there for. Job number 2 might pay the bills. You never know, and it's a little passionate. And then the third thing is you get no money from it, but it's full passion. And if you juggle these 3 things and work at these 3 things like all the time, once a week, then at one point job number 3 could become job number 2, and job number 2 could graduate to job number 1. But the point is that you're always constantly working on it. And when I read that, it made me feel like, okay, I don't have to be full passion. I don't have to be like everything I do is never gonna suck. Like, I need to bring in money, and the easiest way for me to bring in money sometimes is freelancing, and there's ways that I can make it better for me, but it isn't like the full passion project. And I think that that's the reality. If you're gonna bootstrap, is you do need to you need to do that.
Yeah.
And it's a mindset thing, and you can't be so hard on yourself that you have to make money.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for doing the podcast. If we want to send people to see your stuff, you got so much stuff.
I know.
Where do we send them?
Well, I do have that. My Squarespace course is the thing that I'm working on hard right now. So you can find that on ilovecreatives.com. But otherwise, Instagram, Puno dos Tres. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm Puno dos Tres everywhere. So
awesome. Thanks for doing the show.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for listening to The Ground Up Show. If you're getting some value from the podcast, you can support the show on Patreon. Every month, I create exclusive videos exploring lifestyle design, minimalism, creativity, and business. These vlogs and AMA podcast episodes, which can be found nowhere else, give a rarely seen look into my work and personal life. Help support the show for the cost of a cup of coffee a week and get access to all this content at patreon.com/Matt Diavella. Again, that's patreon.com/Matt Diavella. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next week.